Hi, my name is Carrie Jones, and our other group members are Ariel and Connolly. And we decided to do our project on the human microbiome. The microbiome, briefly, contains bacteria and viruses and fungi. It's microscopic living things that mostly reside in the intestines, but also exist throughout the body.
So common bacteria of the body, on average, you have about 3 to 4 pounds of bacteria living on and in your body. They either live on your skin, mucous membranes, or in the gut area. Bacteria that live on your skin need to be able to survive a pretty hostile environment, including very salty and acidic environment. You have bacteria such as Staphylococcus epidermidis, Cultibacterium acnes. That's the bacteria that actually causes acne. You have Corynebacterium and Streptococcus mitis. But you also have a host of bacteria inside your gut. Some are fairly heard of, like Escherichia coli, E. coli. We hear about that disease, contaminated lettuce, but it actually is a normal part of your microbiotica in your gut. We also have Enterococcus faecalis, Bacteroides fragilis, Bacteroides meningonicus, and Bacteroides oralis.
A couple of functions of the microbiome itself that can aid us. First is just aids in our digestive process. The microbiome itself can help with competition and inhibition of disease-causing microbiota. So the microbiome in our body can actually help to protect us against invasive bacteria or viruses or any other type of pathogen. And also the microbiome itself can help to stimulate the immune system for it to be active in response to an invasive species of any type.
This basically is just a layout of the microbiome development of bacteria in the intestines. 4 of the main bacterium includes the Bacteroidetes, Firmicutes, Actinobacteria, and Proteobacteria. In infants, there are several factors that affect the development of bacteria, and this is a really crucial time for bacterial development. C-section versus natural births are especially difficult. C-section births causes complications in the development of bacteria and tend to have high amounts of atopobium than natural birth infants, as well as breastfeeding versus formula. Breast milk contains a lot of hormones and antibodies that formula doesn't give. Mothers also given antibiotics affects the development of the microbiome in infants, as antibiotics tend to destroy all the bacteria. It inhibits the bacteria that can be present and given through breast milk. At birth, there are several bacteria that are already present in the gut, and those include Escherichia coli, Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, and Enterobacteria. And then when an infant is introduced to breast milk, several other bacteria, including Actinobacteria, Firmicutes, Bifidium, Bacterium, and Clostridium, are introduced with breast milk. As a child develops, the final development shifts between 18 to 36 weeks of age, and this, especially during the weaning period where solid foods are added into the diet, really affects as a new introduction of bacteria enters into their lives. The stabilization of bacteria is a major part of the development of the microbiome. As the Bacteroidetes and Firmicutes ratio begins to stabilize, and the development of proteobacteria also comes into play. Diet is a major role in the development of bacteria, especially in children. And we see in adults, the changes in the development of the microbiome are mostly centered on diet. There are several different studies about vegetable-centered diets versus animal products, and the development of certain bacterium, such as Bifidobacterium, adds to the development of bacteria in a lot of the sites in the body. Among the elderly population, the microbiome has a huge shift in development as the several factors external factors especially begin to affect the microbiome, such as antibiotic usage, environmental changes of living in a community versus living on your own. There's dietary changes, especially malnutrition affects which bacteria are present in the gut at each time. Um, but there are dietary and lifestyle changes that can help stabilize the microbiome in this specific time period.
All right, we're going to talk about some of the pathologies of common diseases and health processes in our body, and the relationship between these conditions and the microbiota. So we'll start with diabetes type 1, which is an autoimmune disease where your body attacks your own insulin secreting cells in your pancreas. One theory that's being studied and actually has some credibility is that it's suggested that the microbiome, the bacteria in your body, might actually be responsible by triggering an immune response against these cells. And when that happens, your body sees those cells as foreign bodies and attacks them, and it leads to an insulin deficiency in your body, causing diabetes type 1. We can also look at the endocrine and nervous system. This quote really summarizes a very good point. We've been looking at serotonin, which is secreted in the gut. It's a hormone secreted in the gut as opposed to the brain, so it's a little bit different. And as such, it is actually proven to be directly inhibited or enhanced by bacteria in the gut, since some of the bacteria in the gut can actually produce their own serotonin. So basically, to sum it up, the bacteria in your gut have a direct effect on your mood, since serotonin is like the happy hormone. All right, and then we'll also look a little bit at weight loss and metabolism. We know that everyone metabolizes food a little bit differently, and part of this has to do with the functions in the microbiome. These bacteria help you digest food products that we're not able to do with our own bodily processes. We're able to use those products, so it's really important for us to have some of these bacteria in our gut. What that says is that depending on the kind of bacteria you have in your gut, might tell you more about how much energy you get out of food, how many nutrients you get out of your food. We depend on this bacteria to get some very vital nutritional parts of our diet, such as vitamin K. What this says for us in the future is that it could help us learn more about how to control weight. It can help us reduce blood sugar levels, which can also lead to better control of type 2 diabetes and minimizing that risk. And we'll also look at some of the other modern medicine advances. One thing we currently do are fecal transplants. We transplant bacteria and fecal material from one person to another person who says had heavy antibiotic or cancer treatments that's killed a lot of their microbiome in their gut. Without that microbiome, they can't benefit from their immune system and digestive processes. So fecal transplants really help to reinstate a lot of that bacteria back in there. We also use it to control inflammatory response for cancer treatments. And in the future, we're looking at improving the efficacy of our antibiotics, looking at diabetes control, weight control, better cancer treatments, and possible inflammatory response control outside of the gut.
Okay, lastly, we're just going to cover some chronic and acute alterations of the microbiome. First, the circadian rhythm stressors. With circadian rhythm, common stressors include just shift work or issues with sleep disorders, as well as social stress. In a study with mice, microbiome differences were detected in fecal samples of the mice that were exposed to either continuous light or continuous darkness. With that, those microbiome changes led to gastrointestinal discomfort in the mice, and female mice were actually more impacted by these changes than the male mice were in this study as well. And also, some autoimmune disorders are known to have impacts with the microbiome. Rheumatoid arthritis and lupus themselves both deal with an imbalance in presence of specific bacteria. With lupus, Rhuminococcus navis is 5 times higher, and then with rheumatoid arthritis, there's an overgrowth of Prevotella copri. And also with this imbalance, it's theorized that there could be earlier detection for autoimmune disorders based on imbalances in the microbiome of a healthy individual. And then lastly, irritable bowel syndrome is characterized as just a general imbalance of the bacterial microbiome in the body. In the in the small intestine, there is something called SIBO, or intestinal bacterial overgrowth, that has been linked with clinical manifestations of gastrointestinal distress. It's not clear, though, if the SIBO itself leads to the IBS or the other way around, but the general imbalance is what triggers the symptoms of IBS in otherwise healthy individuals. Okay, and lastly, in conclusion from what we've talked about, we notice microbiome itself develops throughout the lifespan of all individuals, and the bacterial composition will change over time. The microbiome itself also plays an important role in the epidemiology and the causes of diseases, and can also be used for medicinal purposes. And lastly, the acute and chronic stressors that we experience in life can also impact the balance of the balance of the microbiome in otherwise healthy individuals.